Well, hey everybody, it's the 11th day of August 2025. I'm Jan Erickson, and this is As Above, So Below. I hope you had a good weekend. We discovered that the people we had do our fence for us, I think 10 years ago or 9 years ago, I don't remember now when it was, barely put any screws in the back. It was barely held together. I have no idea how it didn't blow down. And it was like 280 feet or something of a fence line that they put in for us, wood fence. My husband was just going to go back and attach something. It was kind of coming loose. He went behind on the neighbor's property and saw what he saw. And anyway, that's what he did yesterday, was finish their job. Only he actually finished it this morning, but still. You never know, do you? Anyway, that's how my Sunday went. Let's go ahead and take a rune from the Elder Futhark bag for the above side or higher self side. We have Nathiz, one of the three Norn runes. Nathiz is the 10th rune of the Elder Futhark. Hagalaz, Nathiz, and Isa are the Norn runes. I tend to give them a little bit more weight than the rest of the rune set, simply because of the idea that the Norns gave Odin the runes, and so I just sort of figured that has a little bit more weight. But Nathiz is about the friction within to manifest something. It's about inner fire and goals. It's binding. It's protection. It's overcoming restriction. It's a very positive rune. Sort of invokes the need within to create, if you will. So something's happening today for you where you feel that need to do something and manifest something. Maybe you've been letting some things gel or something for a while, and maybe you're narrowing it down to the one thing you want to do. But it's the strong need to do that. Let's see, what do we have here? Oh, well, we have Populus. Populus is the complement of Vaya, whereas Vaya, this would be Vaya, is a new path opening, or the way, or the journey, or something like that. Populus would be following along with the crowd, or a follower of some kind. So you have a very passive influence with Populus versus Vaya being active. It would be easier to say that if it were Vaya, it would align well with Nathiz, in that maybe a new path is opening. But I have to wonder if, when we draw the cards here, if what we're going to be looking at with Nathiz and Populus is letting go of the need to follow along and to step outside maybe your comfort zone, or maybe the follower aspect is not very comfortable, and you've begun to realize that, and you're ready to step out on your own and do something else. So in that regard, Populus could indicate what's been going on for you, and Nathiz is what's coming up, where you just can't do that anymore. You can't be part of the crowd. You have to stand out and do your own thing, and that need is very strong. So I would suspect that I'm going to start out that way with the runes. Let's cut this deck and take the lower half. Take 3 cards, and we have 2 cards from the Major Arcana here. On Thursday, I forgot to do the numerology, and it was the master number of 11, which would have, I included that in the short write-up of the reading notes. I added that in there just as a reinforcement for everything else that I talked about on Thursday of last week. Anyway, but we do have 2 cards from the Major Arcana and 1 from the Suit of Cups. And I think that it's very possible that we go from cups to the lovers and then to the hangman here. But we'll see. Let's go ahead and I'm going to do the numerology this time. I just got into the reading. I totally forgot. So we had 10 for not these. We have 5 for the 5 of cups. We have 6 for the lovers and 12 for the hanged man. That's 33. So see that this is, I wanted to make sure. 33 is sometimes referred to as Christ consciousness. Not in terms of the individual, but in terms of the higher consciousness of the number itself. Some numerologists say, "Oh, that's nonsense. There's only 11 and 22." I don't know. I've always learned that 33 is part of that 11, 22, and 33. But I think that it could be, if that's the case, then higher self could be drawing you away from the collective egoic following crowd-like thing and into higher consciousness, where you have a higher need to manifest something better than whatever's going on for you in the other. The problem with populace is it just gets to be the same thing every day, right? And you're following along. You're not asserting yourself. You're not really standing out from the crowd at all. You're just going with the flow, and there's no catalyst there within to make that do anything else. All right. And so I think that with 33 as the overall numerology for the reading today, you're looking at that higher consciousness, tapping you on the shoulder with not these and saying, come on, let's get out of that and let's go do what you were meant to do. And so I think, though, that we're going to start with some loss here. Something's changed within your life. It's emotional. You see 3 cups on the ground. You see 2 behind him. He can't see the 2 behind him. He's wearing a black cloak. So he's upset. His head is bowed. This may be his home across the little creek right there. You see the arched bridge there that goes to it. But he's on the other side. And he's, in fact, you can see right here, you see it starts here, it's here, and it's here, and it's here. There's actually a line, and he's on the other side of that. And now it's not the dual line, but it's a dark line. So, I mean, basically the same thing. So there's really a sense of loss of maybe home or family or structure or foundation or grounding, some kind of for energy, very earthy, very home, it could be lost his job, but there's something emotional that's happening where he's quite bereft about it. And so it was a big change in his life that separates him from the rest of his experience, whatever that is. Again, whether, this is home, I tend to interpret it as home. Especially when we get to the lovers here. Now, there could be something here that could be partner related. Generally speaking, I interpret this card maybe a little bit different than that. But this also can mean about discernment in terms of partnership. It's about balance and duality and self and others, but it's also the self within. This could be polarity, masculine and feminine polarity here. But just let me talk a little bit about the lovers here. You see the angel above sitting on a cloud. You see the rays of heaven shining down with the sun. You see the man and the woman both nude. I tend to interpret them as Adam and Eve. You've got the tree of knowledge here that's all green and lush and filled with apples. You see the serpent coiled around the trunk of the tree and is right there on the shoulder. The head is right there on the shoulder of or just behind the shoulder of Eve. You see the spindly oak tree here, not as lush and full, because his focus is not on higher consciousness. His focus is on her. You can see he's looking at her, whereas she's looking at the angel. And so I just interpret that to be the strength of the divine feminine within, that is, because you see the mountain here leaning toward her. So I think that, mountains are always about strength and challenges and things like that. But the challenge, if it's challenge that we're looking at the challenge of remaining balanced, maybe the relationship, and we're assuming that this is a man. We don't really know for sure, but it could apply to either a man or a woman. But the bottom line is here, I think that if you are trying to manifest something different, then maybe things just got so out of balance here, because you see a lack of balance here between the 2 upright and the 3 on the ground. You don't see 3 and 3 upright, or all of them on the ground, or whatever. So there's no emotional balance there. And so maybe some emotional balance got off in terms of, and then got you in that position where you were following instead of manifesting and creating on your own. And that became, at least for the time being, your comfort zone. And now with not these, is and the 33 numerology here, higher consciousness is saying, no. You need to move out of that. You need to move out of what you were doing, and because that's really not your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is really when you're manifesting and creating. That's what we're here to do. We're not here to get stuck in some flow of energy that really doesn't come from us. We've just agreed to it. We've agreed to be there. That's all we've done. And so maybe with the 5 of Cups, the change that's happening here, is there's an emotional imbalance that has created a problem in his life or her life, and essentially separated himself from the home or the populace that he's used to being in. Now, if that's the case, then that actually, and 5 is a catalytic number with change and momentum and innovation and variety and freedom versus restriction. Maybe, even though this might be emotionally upsetting, you understand the need to move on and to get out of that follower type of an experience. And so this could be the actual catalyst for the move from populace into not these. All right. And again, finding a better polarity within. Again, if this is partnership, the divine feminine is focused on higher consciousness and the creator and all of that. She's not focused on this guy. And so the strength isn't even there because the oak tree is just beginning. It's not even in its complete fullness in terms of being leafed out and beautiful, and a beautiful oak tree and all this. This is just almost nothing, where she has everything. And the idea of Eve being the lesser of the 2 is ridiculous, when she's the one that actually decided to learn something, to step outside the comfort zone of following along and doing what everybody expects of her. And instead, she's focused on higher consciousness and saying, no, I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, I'm going to become, I'm going to do, and I'm going to manifest, and I'm going to create. And again, realizing that following along isn't going to get you there. It's stepping outside the comfort zone, believing in something more, and acting upon that belief, right? Which brings us to this guy. That's interesting. I can shut that. I don't know why I can't shut that off on my phone other than this button here, but that doesn't always work. So at least I can get it on my computer, because it comes over that too. Apple products, Anyway, sorry about that. Here we have the Hangman. Now, again, this just reinforces the idea of here we have it's the 12th card of the major arcana. You've got a bunch of 3s here. 2 and 1 is 3. You've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the idea of surrendering to spirit. That's the part about the Hangman that I find so interesting. It's alignment and transformation, it's change, sacrifice, It's letting go of, again, the populace in your life, of going along with the crowd and not thinking for yourself, and thinking outside the box, or just getting out of that false sense of security with the comfort zone of populace and moving into something exciting, and standing up for higher truth, basically. So whether this or not, this is, and here you have just surrendering to that. You see the rays of spirit emanating from his head, and it's invoking that higher awareness into the physical consciousness, into the ego side of things, so that spirit is controlling the car instead of ego controlling the car, right? And so the choices that you make, surrendering to spirit, to surrendering to that higher consciousness, is a different type of surrender than you have with populace. Populace is surrendering to the crowd in the physical plane, as opposed to surrendering to who you are as a soul in higher consciousness, in that collective consciousness. So now, I mean, this can suggest that you're ready to manifest a new path forward. You could maybe be getting involved in some kind of collective type of experience where you're going to be a leader in that, or something. You're going to be manifesting that you're going to be speaking truth to power, that kind of thing, as opposed to just going along and never asserting yourself and never speaking up for what's right. With 33 and the idea of Christ consciousness, I suspect that this is more societal, and there's probably some shifts in various people's mindsets and belief structures, and not giving themselves away to people who have an agenda, that need them to follow along, and not stand up and say, that's ridiculous or whatever. There just seems to be this global consciousness, this global awakening. You'll see it with people, if you're following international news at all, you'll see with protests that are just massive in different countries, where people are tired of the powers that be that are essentially oppressive. And we're going through that now, where that type of fascistic oppression is coming into play here. And people are going to have to decide just exactly who are they gonna follow. Are they gonna follow somebody that wants you to give up your rights? I saw a thing where you've got this religious guy that some guy that's a Christian. I think he's a pastor or something, I don't know. And his whole attitude is women shouldn't have the right to vote. Well, So it's that kind of thing, that type of control that is now being exerted over this country, where, tariffs are paid for by the other countries. No, they're not. They're paid for by us. They want you to believe the opposite of what's true while your life begins falling apart. And so I think that with the 5, it's almost like, the emotional imbalance, and as distraught as this person is, and sad as this person is, it's a catalyst for something new, that everything you thought was real is not. And so emotionally that can be quite upsetting, right? But there's a part of that that's within. And if you talk about the lovers in terms of discrimination, you've got to be able to understand who you're looking at and what they're essentially trying to get you to believe and get you to do. And it's a bunch of nonsense, really. But if you look at it from the idea of the polarity within, it's time for the rebirth of the divine feminine, so that the divine feminine within can give us the empathy that we need. 6 is about empathy. It's about understanding. It's about assistance and guidance. And manifesting that will within to let the divine feminine out and be part of who you are in your life, and have the strength of that balance be more heavily weighted on her, because patriarchy has gotten us nowhere but where we are right now. And where we are right now is not in a good place. And to think that these kinds of things could happen and start to unfold in this country, well, we were always just a gnat's eyelash, as they say, away from that happening at all times. And it's because people they follow what other people say and do instead of trying to source this out for themselves and make their own mind up. It's the whole fall in line business. And so I think that surrendering to that higher power, and which is your soul, and the higher consciousness, that we should be viewing all of our experiences here through that lens instead of through the lens of the ego and buying into verbiage that is nothing more than garbage, basically. And thinking, well, that's gonna, that'll be great. It'll just be the other group that will be harmed by this, not me, because I'm with them. It's like, no. That's the illusion that they wanted you to buy into. And, do we stand up? Do we stand up for people that are being harmed, both here and abroad? Is that what we need to do? Well, of course it is. That's the divine feminine coming in and saying, look, that we cannot allow people, we should at least be able to agree that we will not allow people to be harmed and people's rights to be taken away. And yet that's what's going on. It's the patriarchy on steroids. It's like the last ditch effort to stay in control. And I don't think it's going to ultimately happen. But in the meantime, it is up to each one of us to invoke our will to manifest a different way forward and to visualize that as happening now instead of waiting for everything to settle out and trying to pick up things from underneath the rubble. We don't, of what's left, We need to not let it get that far. And so I don't think that this is about, necessarily manifesting a new relationship with others, because you could say that you have something with the 5 where, you lost your love and now you may find another. I don't think that that's what the Lover's card really is all about. I think that it's more than that. I think it's about having that balance and that choice to to see things from a higher perspective and to act from there versus again following along with a crowd that doesn't even know what's about to happen to them. You see, it's like following them off a cliff, and you don't know the cliff's there until you take that step and you're in free fall. Nobody knew, and yet that's where it's going to go. So again, I think, I've kind of been doing these readings both societally and individually, but today I just think that with the 33, we really are looking at, what are we here as souls to do and accomplish and learn? It's going to be individual for sure, as to what each soul is here to do. But collectively, we have to remember that's what we are. Instead of, living in the populace energy of it and allowing somebody else as an overlord to decide for us what it is we're going to do and how we're going to think and the deception right now. All they have to do is just say, this is true. And we're going to do this. And none of that's true. It's like when they manufacture a crisis and then are right there to provide the solution. That's a really sick way of doing things, isn't it? And I think that's the populist energy right now, where you have a certain segment of the population that's just hanging on their every word and, oh, great, and they don't understand that, they're part of it. And they're going to be experiencing just as much harm as anyone else is, you see. And so invoke the not these within, the inner fire within, to stand up and say, no, that I'm going to do whatever I can in my life and in my family's life, and, to get us in a different place. Because if you have an energetic shift like that, it makes it much harder for the negative side of things to win. civil disobedience can take some really interesting forms. It doesn't have to be a sit-in where everybody's seeing you do that. That's a form of civil disobedience. But you can be doing things behind the scenes that you don't necessarily talk so much about, but you're making some changes in your life to where you're not allowing what's happening to impact you. That would be one form of civil disobedience where, again, you're making the choice, you're discerning the situation in a more balanced way, and you're drawing from higher awareness to make the choices that you need to make, instead of from this lower vibrational, negative, criminal. I mean, what's going on in this country, and to think that we're dealing with that. Well, obviously this is something we need to deal with, and so we are dealing with it, and in whatever way we can. But even if it means rejecting this, and standing up and saying no, release the files. Don't, it's not the grand jury testimony that you need. You need the files. That's what you need. And that's what we all need to understand, what's really going on and who people are. Doesn't matter which side of the aisle they're on either. Whoever they are, if they're that, well, they need to go. All of them. To jail. So it's just an interesting, reading, particularly with the 33 numerology of it. It's time that we stood up and we, embrace the truth, no matter how ugly it might be. But the only way that we get past it is to understand what it is. And things have been kept from us for far too long. And because you realize this has been going on. Well, I mean, it's been going on for decades, really, with these people, but these particular people. But at least since 2015, where a lot of this was known, and they did this, We can't do that. Victims matter. Survivors matter. And it's about time we valued that, don't you think? So again, this is, I think, just something where you need to be thinking about where you stand on a lot of the things that are going on right now. Are you in the crowd, or are you going to step out of it and say no more? All right? So use the, it might be upsetting, but that's the catalyst for a rebalancing of the polarity within, having it be more heavily weighted on the divine feminine versus the patriarchal ego. They can't, I mean, can you believe they don't want women to vote? Can you believe that? Well, surrender to spirit instead of to the crowd. Thanks for watching. And everything's out on the blog over at Stepping Aside. The web address there's imsteppingaside.com. Go ahead and check that out if you will. The forecast is up. The correspondences for Work and Magic, if you're so inclined, are also up. And I do those two things every week. And then look for the write-up, the reading notes for each of the readings this week on Monday and on Thursday. And click subscribe if you haven't. I would love you to do that, and come back on Thursday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.